In our teacher training school, we have some very specific methodologies that are drawn both from the deep tradition of yoga and also contemporary neuroscience. One of those methodologies is teaching with right brain language and really leaning into that to help balance out the hemispheres of the students' brains, because most of us spend our day in a left brain mode. And also because trauma healing requires that we really connect into the right brain and also into the body, of course. So the class that you're going to see here is a class where I was really prioritizing right brain language and demonstrating that for our 200-hour yoga teacher training group. We deepen this understanding in our 300-hour yoga training and, of course, in our yoga therapy training, which is the 800-hour program. So if you're interested in learning more about that, how we do this methodology, or you're interested in teacher training, just let us know. You can leave a comment below this post, or always you're welcome to leave comments and questions on the YouTube video. And it's really helpful if you subscribe. You'll get notifications when we have new classes. And if you like using the like button, working for you. Okay, I'll see you in the class. Welcome for practice, everyone. I'm really glad that you're here. We'll take a short period to sit quietly. I'd like to introduce a way of teaching yoga that is really relevant to trauma healing and trauma resilience. But first, we're going to drop in so we can experience what I'm going to talk about. You can experience it as meaningful to you and something that you can really relate to. So please come into a comfortable seat. And drop your hands to your lap if you like, or place them where they're most comfortable to you. Lengthen up through the crown of your skull and give a little lift at the base of your skull also. If you can slightly lift the roof of your mouth, that's called the upper palate. Also lift your heart. Lean a little bit into the back hemisphere of your body. And then drop your sitting bones and your tailbone down. And then as you take your seat and you've kind of organized yourself architecturally, when you drop inside now, see if you can sense what's present for you. You can listen for any feelings or sensations, emotions, perhaps images. Sometimes there'll be a sense of the sensations are more light, sometimes more dense. Raj is energized, mobilizing. Tamas is more still, more grounded, sometimes more stagnant. And Sattva is clear and balanced. And it's possible that as you take your attention inside, there's going to be places in your body that feel rajasic, some that feel tamasic, and others that you sense to be sattvic. A little bit like when you're in the ocean, snorkeling or scuba diving, and the temperature changes in one part of the water, and then it changes back. Listen for the gunas, the energy patterns, allowing them to be where they are and how they are. And then you could imagine your mind, if it were like a jukebox playing music, what is being broadcast from your mind? And perhaps the question is, what numbers of things are being broadcast from your mind? And I'm going to invite you to sense that in each of those little queries, in each of those inquiries, there was a central something in yourself from where you were giving attention to your body, to the gunas, to sensations, to thoughts. There's a central place or an aspect of yourself, or you might have no words for it, but it's that which is giving attention. And this thing, which can have a word or no word, is also not the thought. It's not the sensation. It's not the feeling. It's not the image either. And yet we have a relationship with this. In yoga, we call it the seer or the benevolent witness. And acknowledging each thing that came up, the gunas, the feelings, sensations, the jukebox of songs, acknowledge all of that, but now orient your attention to this which gives attention, which grants awareness to you. And begin breathing into that as if it were in the central plumb line of your body. And as you breathe into this, let's call it the benevolent witness or the kind observer. As you breathe into this, imagine the breath moving up and down this central channel in your body, and it's kind of clearing that out. As if maybe you got some dust or debris in there, and the breath is capable of clearing that. And then please raise your hands to your heart. And we'll chant Asatoma Satgamaya. Om Asatoma Satgamaya. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Asatoma Satgamaya. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Asatoma Satgamaya. Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. You may bow your head to your heart and release your hands. Please open your eyes. So there are many aspects of contemporary brain science and psychology and all the things that were already explained in yoga. And you can come to know this, like I've studied neuroscience and interpersonal neurobiology and psychology and yoga psychology. My background is in mental health and art therapy and transpersonal counseling, to be specific. And so as you study, as I've studied as a contemporary Westerner, I keep seeing that yoga is verified, as if it needed that. More often what I'm sensing is, oh, as I'm learning more about yoga, it's verifying what I've learned in contemporary sciences. But initially people may sense like these are new discoveries according to contemporary science because they are relatively new in science. Like the whole field of interpersonal neurobiology is relatively new. However, it's said to be verifying yoga, which did not need verification, but yoga could have verified that. So today we're having a teacher training group in the house here in the yoga class. And one of the things I really want them to understand is how we teach to integrate the two hemispheres of the brain, left brain and right brain. Along the way, we're also, of course, using the three aspects of the brain, that is the neocortex, the limbic brain, and the lizard brain, sometimes called your triune brain. But today you're going to hear me focus more on the right brain explicitly with a certain tool that we put into our yoga teacher toolkit. And it has to do with inviting you to cultivate imagination, to live in imagination for a time, to feel into something without it needing to go anywhere, without it needing to be explained, without it needing to be explicit or linear, without needing it to be directed. We're not looking for any outcome. So that's kind of biasing the right hemisphere of the brain, which has these beautiful capacities for creativity and awe and timelessness, interbeing. You know, when you have a felt sense of interbeingness or interconnectedness, when you're resting in that, which yoga calls samadhi, the absorption, your right brain is there promoting that opportunity. The left brain will try to explain it to you. And of course, when we arrive in states like samadhi and other words we use for this absorption, this sense of that interdependence, interconnectedness, interbeing, also both hemispheres of our brain have allowed us to get there. So I'm not dismissing the value of the left brain, but I'd like us to focus our class today with fewer left brain instructions and more right brain instructions, so you can really get a sense of what that means. By the way, if teacher training interests you, a couple little announcements. One is that our teacher training school does accept applications for the 200, 300, and 800-hour training. And also this summer in August of 2023, we're having a 4-day retreat at Brighton Bush Hot Springs. And it will go deeply into some teacher training content, also appropriate for students who are not in a teacher training. So we'll be looking deeply at the anatomy and the architecture of poses. Think of that as a more left brain deep dive into the body. We'll be looking at the 5 imperatives from the Bhagavad Gita and looking at that through the lens of living in contemporary society and the dilemma of the climate. So that'll be our philosophical focus. And then we'll have a section on yoga and mental health. And likely in yoga and mental health, you'll hear me talk more about how yoga therapy is really helpful in healing held, unknown, unrecognized traumas that live in the right brain trauma pockets and in the tissues of the body, and in these things we call body memories, which you probably had several body memories already today. You may not have recognized it as such, but along the way, I can train you about what that is too. For today, when we go to the right brain for these instructions, what we're listening for, what we're sensing into, there will be no right answer. There will also be no wrong answer. That's very liberating. As Thich Nhat Hanh said something before he died. He said it after he had a stroke, and when he went back to his village in his home country, he was having a tour of the stupas. And he said to his students who were there, he said, "When I die, do not make a stupa with my name on it, for I will not be in there, and I will not be out there either." So it's called neither this nor that. I will not be in there, he said. I will not be in that stupa. I will not be out there either. You know, like I'll be in your heart. So this is the felt sense in the right brain, neither right nor wrong. Neither this nor that. Neti, neti is the phrase. Neti, neti. So to begin, let's come up to standing, please. And I'll meet you on my mat back there. Take a wide stance. I love to start with this pose because it's very stable. It's also inward and downward. And frequently people come to yoga class feeling, upward and outward. They maybe are trying to get more embodied. So take a wide stance like this. Please make your feet parallel and come over to a forward bend. Go ahead and take off your glasses if you wear glasses. And you can place your hands on the floor or on some blocks. Let's relax the weight of the head. And initially here, energize your feet as if they were the roots of a tree heading down into the soil. And activate your leg muscles, as we know that plants and trees have bidirectional pathways just like we do. So you're going to activate down into the earth and up from the earth. Meanwhile, you have circulation that goes from your heart towards your periphery and from the periphery back towards your heart, just like plants and trees do. And then allow your torso to relax a bit more like a waterfall or a cascade. And see if you could sense, starting at your sacrum, a release like vertebrae by vertebrae, as if it were a slow motion river meeting a little waterfall, another one, and all the way down to the crown of your skull. While keeping your legs stable, please walk your hands forward. So we're going to help to open up the chest and heart and return more deliberately to diaphragmatic breathing. Relax the weight of your head. And as you sense into your body, see what comes for you as a kind of image in nature. If the breath were to be described by itself as an aspect of nature, what might you sense there? If the sensations in your legs were some part of nature, what might they be? Depending on the kinds of sensations you have, you may have more rough sensations or smooth sensations, maybe more narrow or more broad. What might that be like if it were a part of nature? And as you breathe in, let's breathe into the back hemisphere of the body with the same question. If the back body were reflecting something of the natural world, what might be there? Like rolling hills or an open field? Or if your back feels a little bit tight or stiff, maybe something comes to mind that represents that for you. And observe how it is to kind of greet the sensations of your body more with your imagination and with nature, potentially then less with judgment or apprehension or coercion. Let's walk the hands back towards the feet. So let's go foot, hand, foot. And curl your torso down towards your legs. That'll be for the exhale. With your in-breath, raise up to your fingertips and glide your heart and your spine forward. Open your throat. And exhale, bow towards your legs. As you move with your inhalation, let's make the breath smooth and accommodating of the body. And as you move forward, you could sense, if this were a part of the natural world, what does this rhythm reflect for you? And exhale towards the legs. And as you move between inhale and exhale, if you're someone who doesn't easily come to images, please don't worry about it. Don't give yourself any extra pressure or concern. I would invite you just to stay with the possibility that an image will come. This is an invitation for your right brain. It's not an invitation to fail. Do one more inhale, glide forward. And one more exhale to bow towards your legs. And shift your hands to your hips, please, and rise up to standing. As you come up to stand, please go heel toe into center. And let's place the feet so that they're in mountain pose. Some of the yoga poses are named after nature, like mountain pose here. So you could imagine the crown of your skull like the high point of a mountain, the peak of a mountain, and the feet and the toes like the base of that mountain. Okay, let's take the feet just a little bit wider apart. If you're using a kind of a standard contemporary yoga mat, this is even more contemporary, but if you're using a standard mat, let's go for mat width, something like that. Raise your right arm out to the side and up overhead. Breathe in. Please hold your right wrist with your left hand. And then exhale and side bend to your left. Now, as you side bend on the inhale, I'd like you to imagine you're arcing up. Sometimes we say like a shooting star. And on the exhale, you can allow yourself to arc down just so long as you're not losing tone in your hips or your belly or your lower back. And so that you could imagine for yourself during the inhalation, an image might even come to mind. For me, I had this image come just now, like when the wind lifts the branch on a tree, and on the exhale, when the wind allows the tree to descend its branch. And you're going to have your own images and your own experiences. So I just encourage you to welcome what those are. Let's do one more exhale, keeping a sense of tone from your feet to your hips to your lower back. And inhale, rise up to center. And exhale, float your arms out to the side. And raise your left arm. And hold your left wrist with your right hand as you reach up, root into your left heel. Keep your hips and pelvis stable, and we'll go to the right. And with the inhale again, whatever imagination brings for you. And even if nothing really comes with imagination, let's keep the possibility open. And some of you will notice that as you approach this more from imagination, there is a kind of internal mental relaxation that can come. Let's rise up. And then exhale, float your arms out to the side. And as your arms relax, let them dangle so they're really loose, like loosey-goosey. And even for those sensations, you could just picture it like something in nature. For me, I'm often reminded of the spring runoff, or how snow melt becomes a little trickling stream. Okay, please come down to your hands and knees facing forward. We're actually going to stretch the wrists and hands for a few moments, so come down to your knees. Turn your right hand inside out like this. Place it on the floor so it's backwards, according to its customary position. And then place your left hand forward of your right hand and put your knees into the cat-cow position, a quadruped position. The left hand is forward of the right, and the right hand is backwards, and the left hand is forwards. So inhale into cat pose. And exhale to cow pose. Inhale to cat pose again. You might notice how the shape of your upper back is different with the hands being positioned like this. Exhale to cow pose. Again, inhale slowly into cat pose. Curl your chin in towards your throat. And exhale, lead with your sitting bones on your way to cow pose. And now begin to lean your hips back towards child's pose, knowing that you're going to be stretching your right wrist, perhaps for some of you significantly. And then inhale and shift forward. Let's put the right hand where your left hand has been. And as you place your right hand down, notice its kind of overall sort of texture or tingle or temperature. And then take the left hand and turn it around backwards. Go ahead and stagger your hands again. So your left hand will be closer to your knees than your right hand is. And then inhale to cat pose again. And exhale to cow pose. Inhale to cat. Move at the pace of your breath cycle, so it's rhythmic. And you can begin to sense once more if your spine were an aspect of the natural world, what images may come to you. There's so many creatures that we've never seen or met, and we couldn't even fathom what they look like until you see them in some kind of book somewhere or on a Instagram post. It's like, oh my gosh. So keep your imagination as wide open as possible. It's really endless. We'll go once more to cat pose. Let me see, inhale for that. And then exhale and lean back towards child's pose, knowing that you'll stretch your left wrist possibly quite a bit. And then release your left hand to be near to your right hand, and let's drop back to child's pose itself. And in this child's pose, please keep your arms stretched out in front. So you're going to stretch the upper back and the heart, the sides of the shoulders, the shoulder girdle. But relax your head. And if your head doesn't comfortably reach the floor, you could use a block or a blanket for that purpose. And then walk your hands back towards your knees. And as you come up to kneeling, just pause for a moment. It's very hard to have memory, long-term memory, even short-term memory sometimes. But pause for a moment to reflect back on kind of the nature of your internal dialogue so far in class. Does it feel more sharp or smooth, more undulating or more pointed? Is it louder or quieter? Okay, rise up to your high knees, and you could use extra cushions for your knees or an extra blanket if you want to. This is a relatively padded floor, so I'm not going to add to it. Let's take the right leg out to the side. Now, when you step your right foot out like that, try to level your hips. So what you have here, your right leg is out to the side, but the hips are level left to right. For some of you, it's your bony design is such that when you put your right leg out like this, you can't make the pelvis level because the bones are hitting here. So with your left leg, turn the toes out. So you're going to rotate the left thigh bone, the knee, and the shin. And then your hips can come more easily to level. That's because you cleared a little blockage on this side. And I find that to be good practice for all of us, actually. Okay, let's inhale, sweep the arms wide. And then exhale and come over towards gate pose. Let's keep the left outer hip right here strong. So you're not going to move your hips to the left when you come over to the right. And then as you're breathing in, you might sense that little arc up, a little bit like a shooting star. On the exhale, a little bit of an arc down, like when the wind relieves the tree branch. Or any other image that comes for you. Now keep your left outer hip and also your left butt muscles strong. And begin to hone in on just one sensation somewhere in the pose. For me, I'm going to choose the left hip flexors. You're going to make your own choice, of course, but hone in on one sensation. And you could ask that sensation, if that were a musical note or a piece of music, what would it sound like? And prepare with an exhalation to rise back up to center. And then release your arms, and let's bring the right leg in. And then the left leg out to the side. Again, to accommodate your hips and the native structure of your hips, take your right foot slightly out because it turns your thigh bone. And that gives the clearance for your left hip here. You breathe in. Tone the right butt on the outside. So we could say outer right hip and right butt. And then listen into your breathing and your body. They are communicating with each other. Without any sense of striving or having to accomplish something. Listen. And sense if your body were in fact a part of the natural world, as we see it, we call it nature. What might you sense there? And as you begin to hone in on just one sensation, listen to it like you're listening for the music, maybe of a bird or an instrument that is familiar to you. Or perhaps like a sound in nature. And use your next exhale to rise back up. Root down into your right shin to rise up. Relax both arms and then step your left leg in. Come down to kneeling, called Vajrasana. Vajrasana is always optional. You could go to sitting instead or put a bench or a rolled mat or a cushion between your hips and your heels. And listen again for where you are giving attention from. So that what I call benevolent witness or kind observer, like each of the images or sensations, breath cycles, from where are you drawing your attention or your awareness? Awareness is bigger than attention. Attention is a skill, and awareness is that thing, which we don't have to have a word for, but we can sense it. Okay, let's come back up to the knees, and I'm going to suggest that you turn whichever way you want to turn, whatever your mat orients in your room is fine. We're going to put the right foot forward, left knee back in anjaneyasana. For this, I'm going to reach for a blanket because I have one part of my kneecap that in anjaneyasana needs the extra consideration. So you can also have a blanket, of course. So let's go to the right and when you bring the right foot forward, bring the left hand down to the floor. And allow your hips to come easily towards your right heel. I'm going to suggest for this morning that in this anjaneyasana, we put both hands to the inside of the right ankle. So of course, you have permission to move your right foot a little bit to the right, and then keep your right heel and your right shin vertical, so you have support there. But both hands can fit on the inside of the right ankle. And allow your breath to come in and down. Tone your right outer hip so the pelvis is not sashaying to the right. And start to listen in to one specific sensation, something that your body is offering the sensation and asking for your attention. And as you listen to that sensation, listen to its qualities, like smooth or sharp, high-pitched or low-pitched, maybe like undulating or stagnant. As you listen into those sensations, you could consider bringing your hands down to the floor a little bit more in front of you. That encourages the torso to bow towards the floor. You're also welcome to consider placing your elbows on the floor or on a couple of blocks. It is not important to get your elbows to the floor. So if as you come down, you lose your connection with that one sensation, if you overwhelm your ability to stay with that sensation, it's actually better to back up in your pose and stay in the conversation with the sensation. So that would be a life skill for you to notice that we have to discern, is it helpful to go quote unquote deeper in this yoga pose? Or is it more helpful to go deeper into your listening? And we're going to walk the hands back to where we started. So they're somewhere near to your right foot. And you can even come up to your fingertips if you began there. And with the exhale, start gliding your hips back until your left thigh is vertical and your right leg comes into a pose we're going to call reverse lunge pose. You can even pick up the toes of your right foot and bow over your right leg. And in this sort of reverse lunge position, you might have a whole different area for sensation. So let your attention land on the sensation that's asking for acknowledgement, or maybe it's asking for the breath. And as you listen to those sensations, listen for any kind of sound. It could be sound from nature or from music. You might also notice as you breathe into a sensation, its sound quality probably changes. And with your next inhale, walk your fingertips forward, kind of in line with your right foot. Once again, this time we're going to bookend the foot, so left hand on the inside, right hand on the outside, and then exhale and glide through to anjaneyasana as you might customarily experience it. Curl your left toes under, raise your hips, walk your hands to center, turn your feet to center, and come into Sarahjoy. Now we're going to take a look at the difference between the right and left leg from the inside. And we're not looking at this for an unhealthy sense of comparison, but actually to learn. So if you sense in your right leg what all is happening there now relative to your left leg, you might sense that one feels different than the other. And you could listen through the lens of the gunas for that. Does one leg feel more tamasic, more rajasic, more sattvic? And then come up to your fingertips and make a little pivot transition to the other side. So you can turn to come down to anjaneyasana with your left foot forward. Let's start with the hands on the inside of the left ankle. You're going to have your left shin. I want that to stay pretty vertical. So you can walk your left foot to the left to keep this leg back here vertical. I realize you can't see mine very well. So I will turn at an angle. All right, so the shin here stays vertical left to right. You may have your knee a little bit forward of your ankle, probably not farther than your toes. And then allow your hips to ease towards your left heel. And as you listen in to the sensations, it's possible that your body responds to your listening. And so notice what that response is like. You might choose to walk your hands a little bit forward. Keep some awareness of your ability to stay in the listening mode with your body, even if you choose to come down to your elbows. You could put blocks under your elbows. You could decide it's not important to come down to your elbows. It's always helpful to reflect on how we make the choices. And I recommend that we do that without any sense of impatience about our bodies or any sense that the body has something wrong with it, but rather that our bodies are giving us profound amounts of information all the time. Walk your hands back to kind of where you started, which is going to be in line with your front ankle. And we'll put the two hands on the inside. So the left shin is once again left to right. It stayed vertical right here, this way, vertical. Curl your right toes under, lift your heart a little bit. And then let's back the hips up until you're in the reverse lunge pose. So if you can, make your right thigh vertical. If you'd like to, pick up the toes of your left foot. And bow over your left leg. And listen again for whatever sound these sensations would be making. They might also come with images from nature. Kind of in a parallel sense of awareness, you can observe how your body responds when you give it this kind of attention. And let's inhale and glide back to where we began, but this time with the hands bookending the left foot. So you've got your left hand on the outside, right hand on the outside. Well, that's actually the inside, but you understand what I mean. And then tuck the right toes under, straighten your right leg, raise your hips, walk your hand to center and turn to Prasarita Uttanasana. And observe again, whatever is available for noticing. How do the two legs feel now in relationship with each other? And then please shift your hands to your hips and rise up to standing. And as you come up, You go heel toe to center. Mine will include a blanket. And come back to mountain pose. Allow your eyes to close if that's comfortable for you, and keep your sensing, listening, seeing inside. Okay, once more, take a wide stance. Okay, when we come down this time, we're going to come down to a forward bend, just as you were doing. And this is your pelvis. When you go down to that forward bend, it goes from here like this. Or some people go farther like my pelvis does. But as we're down there, you're going to hear me say, lift your left hip higher than your right hip. That is a movement of your pelvis this way. Then we'll come back to center. Then we'll go the other way. As we're doing that, it'll seem to you that one leg is longer than the other, of course, very temporarily. But I wanted you to have a sense that you're actually moving that like a seesaw. So from this wide stance, come forward and down. You can touch the floor with your fingertips. I put a blanket here before, that's not necessary, so I'm going to scoot mine out of the way. Now with the legs strong and stable, come up to your fingertips so your hands are underneath your shoulders. And then shift your hips to your left. And slowly glide your hips to your right. Now, as you glide your hips right and left, most of us will think about the destination. I'm going to ask you to think about the movement that takes you to that destination. So let's put the hips to the left and place your awareness at your left outer hip, where that thigh bone meets your hip socket. And to shift your hips to your right, tone your left outer hip muscles, give them a squeeze. And use those muscles to glide your pelvis to your right. And then connect to your right outer hip muscles and give them a little squeeze to glide your pelvis to your left. And notice, for how long can you keep those muscles turned on? And you're going to go to your left again, of course, in your own timing. You're going to squeeze the muscles and glide your pelvis to the other side. Try to sense how long you keep those muscles toned at the left outer hip. And do it from the right side again, too. I'm going to ask you to continue at your own pace and to really sense into the relationship you can have with these tiny muscles. They're out here called the deep six. And on top of those are your abductors. Now, as you glide across in one direction, start sensing if those muscles at your outer hip, let's say they were some creature in nature or some part of nature, what would that be like? Now, the next time that you take your hips to your left, go ahead and stay there. And see if you can keep those muscles at the right outer hip toned and strong. And as you do that, you may sense that your right inner thigh, the whole inseam of the leg, might be more sensational when you keep the right outer hip strong. And then connect to your left outer hip. Begin toning those muscles, and you're going to glide your pelvis over to the right.
Notice for how long you can keep those sensations engaged at the left outer hip. You're going to be meeting the inseam of your left leg there. So the tone of the left outer hip is really important. And you can again sense, like in the natural world, in the natural order of things, there are all of these reciprocal relationships. Here's one of them: your left outer hip and your left inner thigh. Now tone the right outer hip and just come to center where both outer hips are toned. And you can comfortably, I hope, comfortably release your torso down between the inner thighs, keeping both outer hips just toned enough, right? So just enough strength and tone there. And please shift your hands to walk up your legs. And as you rise up, we're going to go heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe again. Come to mountain pose. And listen for the place from where you listen. Okay, please take a blanket to sit on. I'm going to fold mine in thirds because it's a little bit higher. It's a little bit more narrow also. Take a seat and come into Baddha Konasana. Put the soles of your feet together. Yeah. I got my hair tangled. Just a moment. Those of you with high empathy networks and hair that gets tangled, your brain's noticing it now. It's true. If I said I was shivering, those of you with high empathy in the body who also don't like shivering, you would be able to feel that sensation. Kind of cool. Right. So in Baddha Konasana, I'm going to move my seat back. In Baddha Konasana, place the soles of the feet together. Let's hold on to the toes for a moment and then lift up through your torso. And using those same muscles that are at the outer hips, those are on each side, imagine those muscles helping you to draw the knees down while you raise your heart up. Okay, as I'm holding the toes here makes, for some of us, the arms are going to be more taut because we have shorter arms and a longer torso. For anybody who can, go ahead and straighten your arms, lift your collarbones, lift your heart, and open your throat. You can press the toes down to keep the arms taut, a little bit like having tent stakes, that you place them in the ground purposely so the tent is well put together. Press your knees down using your outer hip muscles. And then exhale and relax, please. And let's bring the left foot to the inside and right leg out to the side. So we haven't done a gate pose in some time. We also haven't done another pose in a really long time, I think because the pandemic changed how we relate to yoga, and also we're not in the same room all at the same time. So some of the camaraderie about pain and suffering, we don't get to have it as much. And by pain and suffering, I mean the privileged pain and suffering of your body hurting in a yoga class. I don't mean the larger pain and suffering right now. And so in this regard, we're going to come towards Janusirsasana, and we're on our way to Kramchasana. If you know the name of that pose, then you'll see why that makes sense in the sequence. Let's rotate the torso towards the right leg, please, and keep your legs where they are. So your pelvis is here, but turn to the lower belly. Yeah, so you're rotating with the inner body, and then reach the left arm out and come towards your right leg. Draw your left hip back towards your blanket. You may relax the weight of your head, and there are going to be sensations from which to choose. Could be your left outer hip, or maybe the lower back, right hamstring, right calf muscle, the air in the nostrils. So invite your attention to land on a sensation. You'll practice listening. Listening without judging, without coercing, without expectation. And as you choose one sensation to breathe into and to give your kind observer to, listen for any way in which the sensation also changes when you're giving it your attention. And with an inhale, stretch the left arm out on the horizon and then rise up to sitting. Release your left arm down. And now for Kranchasana, bring your right foot in. Okay, let me turn a little bit sideways so you can understand better. So the right leg comes in against the torso. Hopefully you're sitting upright and not tangled by your clothing, your hair, a yoga strap, a dog, a cat. And what you do is you hold the toes here. And then pick up your foot. Let's just come to the first position, which we'll say is right here. So we're not really leaning back to pick up the foot. We're not leaning back. It's not like you have to stay stick straight, but I don't want you to kind of counterbalance by leaning back to hold up your foot. And then based on your hamstring and calf flexibility, take your right leg up. That should not have tossed your torso backwards, by the way. And so as you're raising that up, then you can reach your, what is it going to be? It's your right hand. That's my right. It's actually my left, but it's going to be my right, to hold your left wrist. Yeah, there you go. And as you're holding, some of you will hold, some of you will not. It's also okay to use a yoga strap or to keep your leg bent, right? In either way, then lift up, look up with the heart and with your physical eyes. And then you bow your torso towards your leg. And you could ask yourself, this is named after an animal, Kranchasana, or maybe it's named after a sundial. I can't remember right now. But you could ask yourself, like, if you were going to name this yoga pose based on nature, what would you name it? And then exhale, and please bend your knee if it's not now bent. And back to holding your foot here. And then we'll place it gently back down. Okay. Facing forward now. Tip your right knee out to the side. And let's hold the inner right heel. You can pick up again, so your foot should be within easeful reach of your hand and arm. And then out to the side. What you can do here is hold your heel and pull back like you're a bow and arrow. You're an archer, a bow and arrow warrior. So you're pulling your elbow back. I know that your bow is out to the side, but let's just go with our imagination. It's like a cartoon mind. Yeah, there you go. Good to be playful. Okay, and then bend your right knee. And now let's try to hold underneath. So when you're going to put your arm underneath, this position with the hand rotates your upper arm externally. And that's an important thing to keep in mind here. So when you hold like this, and then start to slowly straighten, and you might sense that you're stretching your wrist or your forearm, roll the shoulder back. So the rotation is external right there. Okay, good. And let that one come back down as well. Okay. Curl the toes under on the floor like this and try bringing, so if the toes are going to stay in one place, you try bringing the heel up slightly and the knee goes out to the side. Yeah. So this angle for your foot to have the heel come up requires hip flexibility, inner thigh flexibility, ankle and toe flexibility. Keep listening into your body. Yeah, there you go. And now raise your foot up and you can cradle it like this. Sometimes we call this the happy baby pose because it didn't really have a name, and I don't think you can find it in the yogic textbook, but as with babies, it's okay to rock this one. A little squeeze of your shin bone with your elbows will sometimes make the stretch deeper in your hips. So again, you can greet the sensations with this quality we've been cultivating throughout class. Like, from where do you give this benevolent witness, this kind and intelligent observation? You know, people often got confused about this, but you can have whatever idea you want to. I think of this as the head of the baby. So I sometimes try to bring the head up. Other people think of that as the head, so they go down like that. Okay, and let's touch the right foot down and place yourself in Siddhasana. So, and put the right foot on the inside for a moment here, and let's just check and see. If you listen through the lens of the gunas now, right leg to left leg, tamas, rajas, and sattva, what are you noticing? Now we'll take the left leg out on this side. Okay, so this is Janusirsasana. I sometimes call this Parvrita Janusirsasana because we are going to make a turn. So if we had this leg and this leg on a more acute angle, the pelvis would already be facing the left leg, but we have it on an obtuse angle. That's your left brain math skills there. So here the pelvis is actually forward. We're going to turn the inner body, rotate the inner belly. Come over. Try to keep your right hip grounded. You may choose to relax the weight of your head. And bring your awareness to any one sensation. Listen in without needing anything to be declared or, like a scientific term for it. And also listen without judgment or expectation. And notice how your body and your sensations are responding as you listen.
And reach your right arm forward and please rise up. And then relax. Okay, so we're going to be shifting towards Kranchasana now. So if you rotate towards your left leg and bend your left knee, so your thigh comes up against your chest. And then hold the toes. And you can hold the toes without really leaning back. There is a slight counterbalance, but should not feel like you're leaning back to get your leg up off the floor. And then slowly, you might choose to keep your knee bent there, or you can listen to the sensations on the back of your leg and kind of decide where is the right place for you, for your sensations, for your mind, for your ability to keep listening. And if you'd like to, you're going to turn the back of the left hand on the arch. So you'll be holding your right wrist. And initially, we lift up and look up. And you might choose on your exhale to come down. Listen for whatever the sensations are. Even if your left knee is bent, some of the sensations are going to be in the inner body, like inside in the digestive tract, for example. And we're going to exhale and bend and shift to your toes, lower down. Okay, and then hold the inside of your left heel. So you can reach with your hand. Your arm is internally rotated right there. Draw your knee back a little bit, kind of like in line with your torso. And you may choose to straighten the leg. You can imagine that you're pulling the elbow back as if you were an archer. Yeah. Lift up through the torso and the spine. Let's exhale and come down, and then take your hand underneath. So you've got your palm face up like we did with the other side. That means that the shoulder is rotated externally there. There you go. And keep the heart rising if you can. Like, what would you name this pose? And then exhale, come down, and let's try to turn the toes. So what happens here is the flexibility of the ankle and the toes are a part of it. I do not have flexible ankles. I have never had flexible ankles nor flexible toes. In some ways, that meant that being a gymnast I was pretty stable. I didn't lose my balance a lot, but in other ways, I didn't have good flexibility of the toes. So like the leaping was harder, but the landing, I could do that. So press your knee down using those outer hip muscles again. Right, and then let's bring the right leg up, left leg up, excuse me. And you can hold it like a happy baby. This particular baby for me is less happy than the other one. A little bit of rocking, a little bit of comfort. You can also rock front to back. Some people prefer that. Sometimes you don't even know the imbalances in your body until you're doing some yoga and you're like, oh, well, that one's harder to hold. Okay, give it a good squeeze. And if this is the head of your baby, the foot, gaze lovingly at it. And then you can release the left foot back down to Siddhasana. Come to your seat.
Let's relax the mind and the body, the breath. And then please come down to the floor for Shavasana. And to get ready for Shavasana, I'm going to suggest that when you first lie down, let me get this, pardon me. When you first lie down, I'll leave my feet showing here for a moment so you can see what I'm going to talk about. That's when they'll be covered, but I'll leave them showing. So when you first come down, lie down flat, put the heels, maybe 12 inches away from each other, and then use the toes and the heels to give yourself a little rock, right? So that movement with the feet, if you have your head centered and you relax the whole spine, even your head is going to be moving. So this is a way of releasing tension from your body and your mind. And then you can let that get really still. I will cover my toes. And come into Shavasana. Let's return to imagination. If you could imagine in Shavasana something from nature that inspires you to deeply, deeply rest. Sometimes I like to think about the way when the tide has come in and it very slowly goes out. So we just had an activating yoga practice. I wouldn't say hugely activating, but we had a practice of action. And now we have a reflection pose, a resting pose. And like when the tide's going out. I sometimes imagine it like when the trees release their leaves, the mind releases the thoughts. So whatever your imagination brings, rest deeply for the restoration of your body, your mind, your brain, your heart. Allow your body to get heavier, more deeply relaxed. And for the remainder of Shavasana, only rest your attention on the source of awareness itself.
not on imagination nor on sensation. Rest your attention on awareness itself. Allow the rest to become even more nourishing. Allow yourself to surrender any unnecessary physical or mental tension. Allowing your mind and your body together, start forming a memory of the feeling tone that's within you now. Let that memory become something that soaks in to your muscles, your nerves, your mind, and your heart. And as the memory soaks in, picture a tangible way to remember it. It might even be an element of nature that you remember it with. It might be a word describing like the quality of your body or your mind right now. And you can wiggle your fingers and your toes. And bend one knee at a time. Roll to your side. And then come back up to your seat. Return to your seat and rest your hands in your lap. And imagine if you were sitting in nature, where might that be? And since we are aspects of nature, what might you be? The last couple minutes together, again, move your attention back to that which is the source of awareness. That source from where you've been drawing your ability to concentrate or give attention. So again, we might call that the benevolent witness or the seer. We rest in that seer. We have nowhere to go, no place to be other than now. Nothing to do, nothing to undo, nothing to want, and nothing missing. Please raise your hands to your heart. And knowing that our larger world is in great need still, in need of practices like this, in fact. And I'm making an assumption that when you feel back home to yourself, you would long for others to also have that experience. So we'll chant Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. May the whole world have access to ease and peace of heart or balance of mind. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste. Before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button if you want to, and leave me questions or comments down below the video. I really do love hearing from you and like what you experienced from the class or the practice. You can put that into a comment. It might benefit somebody else who's also practicing this practice, and you may see that there's questions that I respond to in the comments from time to time as well. So go ahead and check the comment section. If you are interested in teacher training, a reminder that the link for teacher training is also in the description for this class. Okay, enjoy your day. Namaste.